Hello, everyone. Welcome to PMF Connect. My name is Agnes from Product Management Festival, and today we have Tom Louis from GOGOX, or used to be GoGoVan. Maybe some of you still know it as GoGoVan. I certainly do know it as GoGoVan. Today as our speaker. Thank you so much that we have so many of you joining from various time zones, I see. So Tom is based in Hong Kong, so I guess we have a lot of people joining from APAC as well, so it's good to see the mixture. I'm just going to very quickly give an introduction for those of you who don't know PMF, Product Management Festival, and then I will hand it over to Tom. Maybe just a quick note that you can ask questions in the chat during the whole duration of the presentation, and then we will be looking at them after Tom's presentation. So Product Management Festival is one of the world's largest community for product leaders. We are on this market since about 7 years now. We are bringing product managers together from all over the world with the aim to amplify the impact of product management globally. We have various activities around the world, including the yearly conferences in Europe and then in APAC. So the Europe one is in Zurich in November, and the APAC one is in June and in Singapore. And we are currently preparing for the Europe's edition in November, which is going to be a hybrid conference. And I'm really happy to share maybe just a few words on that just in a second. But before that, just for the overview, I wanted to mention the other activities that we are doing as well. Thanks to our local ambassadors all around the world, we are running the PM nights as well as executive circles. These are meetups, October meetups. The PM nights are for all audiences, and then there is the executive for the exec CPO heads of products. Thanks to a collaboration with INSEAD, we are also running the Product Management Executive Education and 3 campuses. So the update about the PMF Europe, which this year is going into hybrid mode. So you will be able to join the conference to attend and fully immerse yourself in the talks of your choice, including the parallel tracks, so not just the keynotes, but the parallel tracks as well, and network with the other participants. You can either interact in person in Zurich if you are allowed to travel. Some countries are allowed to travel, or if you are a participant from Switzerland. We don't have currently bans on events, the size of events even, or you can join in from online. And then of course you can also do it like in a combination of those. Even if you are based in Switzerland, you can still join in online. And then there is also opportunity that you can get together in your own cities if you have more people joining in from the same city, and then you can get a kind of a streaming like we do for the World Championship. So you can decide. There is a quick teaser on the speakers are already announced. They are on the website, and on productmanagementfestival.com/Zurich. You can go and check out the schedule is up, and we already have 2 keynotes confirmed, one Grace from Google and Ram from booking.com. And then as an attendee of PMF Connect, you get the discount code of Discount Connect, which basically gives a 20% discount on the tickets, the regular tickets. So I'm trying to change slides as usual, is always this issue. So here we are today at PMF Connect, which is also one of our initiatives that we started with this, with the current crisis going on, and then we cannot get together in person. So we started the online learnings and sharing platform. And this is now the 14th episode. We are running these now a weekly session. So go to the website and check out who's coming up next week. We usually do it on a Thursday. And today I have a pleasure to welcome Tom Louis from GOGOX. Tom is a senior product manager at an on-demand logistics platform, GOGOX, where he's in charge of driver's experience. He has joined the company 4 years ago, witnessing the growth of the company as well as the transformation of the team. He led the GOGOX driver app global revamp project and launched a new order matching system. Prior to joining GOGOX, Tom worked on an app store optimization and the launch of a new social product at 9gag. And today he is going to share with us the 5 lessons he and his teams learned by running product strategy meetings. Tom, the floor is yours. I'm going to stop the slide sharing and then you can take over.
Thank you, Agnes, for the kind introduction. Let me first share my screen. Just give me a second. So are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. So thank you again for Agnes. And today I'm very happy to be here, to be invited to share with you a couple of things that I have learned about running product strategy meeting at GOGOX. So before we begin, just a short introduction about myself. I'm currently a senior product manager at GOGOX, leading the driver experience team. And so it would include the end-to-end experience of our drivers, from driver onboarding, activation, to driver quality, as well as the dispatch mechanism. GOGOX, previously called GoGoVan, is the first on-demand logistic platform based in Hong Kong. We are also the first unicorn startup in Hong Kong. It is a two-sided marketplace connecting drivers and client. We specialize in real-time and inter-logistics service, supporting SME, large corporation, and individuals. Currently, we operate in 6 different regions in Asia and serve people in over 300 cities with 8 million registered drivers. We have a relatively small development team though. Our team have 7 product managers and around 30 engineers. So each of the product manager would own a theme, a cross-functional autonomous team, similar to the infamous Spotify squad or Netflix pod. Each team would have a PM, engineer, data scientists, and designers. So before joining GOGOX, I was at 9GAG. 9GAG is a social media platform for users to share user-generated content, well known for funny contents and memes. So do check out the website if you want to get a good laugh. And at 9GAG, I was on App Store optimization, launching new social media verticals on Instagram, on Facebook, and also was responsible for launching a new social products. What was interesting about 9GAG was that we had a really lean team. The whole company has around 20 people, but the platform back then has already was serving 15 million monthly active users, and it was kind of eye-opening for me to see such small team can with a right strategy, well-aligned strategy, and focus can have such a big impact. Since then, company strategy, product strategy have become things that I think about a lot. So this sharing is about product strategy meeting. Here are a few things I will talk about. First of all, what is product strategy meeting? How did we start doing it at GOGOX? And what iteration did we have to make the most out of it? So here I want to read the room. How many of you have any experience with running or any experience with product strategy meeting? So what I would love you to do is to hold up your phone, switch on the camera to scan that QR code on the screen, and you will automatically enter a slider web so that you can respond to the live pool. And also feel free to drop any question or suggestion at any time. Cool. Yes. Okay. So I can see we have a very different experience with product strategy meeting. We have like 70% people of the audience have experience with meetings, and some may never heard of it or never attend any. In fact, at GOGOX, we started doing the product strategy meeting around 2 years ago. And I believe actually a lot of companies have similar meeting, just that they're in a different form or different structures. Cool. 60% have experience, and 40% is the first time to learn about product strategy meeting. So before we begin, first thing first, I think in order for us to figure out whether your organization or the company needs to be running product strategy meeting, I guess we have to define what it is, so make sure that we are all on the same page. Regardless of the form of the meeting, a product strategy meeting is basically a meeting about share key learning with the team. It's mainly about the articulation of your strategy, tactic, and metric. One thing to note that is this meeting is not a decision-making meeting. So basically, you're not sharing any execution plan or fixed timeline or things that's set in stone. But rather, this meeting is for people who look for an open conversation with the team about some of the potential strategy that you would like to pursue, to adopt in pursuit of some business goals or OKR. And of course, it sort of explain why some strategy or tactics would have higher ROI compared to others, because in the meeting, a lot of discussion and debate, so you sort of have to like justify and explain why we choose that instead of another. And there are many ways for you to run product strategy meeting. Some team would do it on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, and with different frameworks. So at GOGOX, we're doing it on a quarterly basis, but it doesn't matter. It all comes from, it all has come from a well-defined company vision and strategy. And then from that, we can see where the company or where the organization currently stands to know the current phase and focus. And from that, the PM, the product manager, and the product leader will derive the key product strategy from there. The meeting usually starts with an intro from the head of by the head of product. He will usually share some insight from qualitative and quantitative research from the user science team. And afterwards, PM of each swim lane, each team or each squad would then present their learnings, strategy, tactic, and metric from the last quarter. And lastly, it will end with an NTPS to collect feedback from all the audience. The attendee of the meeting would vary. It really depends what the size of your organization, but it should involve some sort of executive from the senior management team so that you know the product strategy that you're talking about, or the company strategy that you're talking about is well aligned with the senior management. And of course, our product leader, data team, research team leaders, tech leaders, and design leaders are all invited into the meetings. From our experience, we will also invite our design partners and all the engineers to attend. Again, the whole purpose of the meeting is to encourage a fast-paced discussion and debate, ultimately lead to a very result-focused and outcome-oriented organization. The key goal, the key purpose for the whole thing is to drive team alignment by giving them enough context and tying back the strategy to the company OKR. And through the context, you empower engineers to know why they are building such thing. And of course, by sharing your priority and also your tactics, it gives your stakeholders a sense that why you're doing such thing. So it helps you to improve your stakeholder management. All right, then, why we started doing the product strategy meeting at GOGOX. So I would like to start off with a quote from Mr. Elon Musk. Every person in your company is a vector. Your progress is determined by the sum of the vector. What that means is basically imagine every team is a vector moving to different directions. They have different impact, different direction, moving to different direction. What happened is if two teams work sort of in an opposite direction, one's effort will be undermined or offset. And what that happened is you're not working effectively or efficiently. So by simply driving that alignment, aligning these vector with all teams working onto the same direction, magic can happen. So I want you to think about you and your team. How many of you think your team and other teams in your organization are well aligned? And also, I want you to think of a time when you found there is conflicting interest in teams. We sometimes get it a lot. For example, if I'm responsible for driver experience, whereas my teammate is responsible for client experience, there's something often at odds in each other. For example, if I want to develop a feature that serves some orders from client to our drivers, then client may not like it. So there are a lot of occasions where these situation would happen. So if you're like us or like most other organizations, the team would have a list of project or initiative somewhere. They may have different KPIs, or they would have some different conflicting but somewhat aligned KPI. So basically, to sum up, teams are not working in the same direction. So people are working hard, they're hitting the KPI, but on a company level, little progress was made, and that sucks, right? And we sort of learned it the hard way. This is actually our team structure since 2017. Before that, we have a country-based product team system where a PM is responsible for all the products of that country. And somehow PM would lose sight of the holistic view of where that product stands and to plan long-term for that particular product. So because of that, we moved to this cross-functional autonomous team structure. So each cross-functional team is based on a theme. In our case, each team would have there's a driver experience theme, there is a client experience theme, business experience theme, growth marketing theme. Each team would consist of members from different functions: product manager, product designer, engineers, and each team would work with the local BD team, the country manager, the local operation team, and the local marketing individually. So it brings us to another problem. Although it gives us the autonomy, but at the same time, it's somehow creating a separate priorities across different teams. Teams are more focused and more accountable because they own the product entirely and own the metrics. But in that case, there are a lot of needs to be regularly communicate with different stakeholders to have aligned goals. And also with this structure, it enables us to think more in the long term. So as a product manager of driver experience team, I can plan things 1 or 2 years ahead. And it helps us to become more product-led instead of business operation-led. But at the same time, stakeholders management become much harder because you're thinking from a product perspective. In their case, they may have a lot of requests to solve their immediate problem, which you may have deprioritized somehow. We acknowledge this issue, but we still decided to stick with this structure because of because the autonomy and the team maturity is something that we want. We're thinking, is there any way for us to solve this pain point or this problem? So product strategy meetings somehow fill this gap. So with having product strategy meeting, we're hoping to solve a few key problems: the alignment across team, the buy-in from different stakeholders, and also to provide enough visibility of the product roadmap to our stakeholders. So this is how the story happens. One day, I presented all these challenges to Vincent, our head of product, and he said, "Hey, Tom, why don't you just do some research and see if a product strategy meeting would help us in this situation?" And that's exactly what I did. I just Googled, and I was actually feeling lucky that day, so I just pressed I was feeling lucky, and it just brought me to the top result. And it was a blog post written by Mr. Gibbs on how to run a quarterly product strategy meeting, a board meeting for product. So Gibbs is the former VP and CPO at Netflix and Chicks. He has written a lot of articles and hosted many webinars, workshops on defining product strategy and running product strategy meetings. So we basically just follow what he stated in the blog post and how he ran the meeting at Netflix. And the good news is, in fact, he is also one of the speakers at the upcoming PMF event, like Angus mentioned. This is the QR code to the event page. So there are also many amazing speakers. So feel free to check that out and sign up. Product strategy meeting is sort of similar to what many books or articles that you have read. From the articles from Gibbs, it tends to describe the end state, like what you should do, what after you do certain thing, this is what happened. But for me, I think product strategy meeting is a solution. And as a PM, we always been more obsessed with the problem than the solution. So I was thinking what problem types that are good for product strategy meeting. And also, since our company and Netflix And with different company size, team maturity, and resources, I couldn't say what works for Gibbs at Netflix and what works for us at GOGOX would definitely work for you. But I definitely hope that our experience and lessons of iterating the meeting can help you to find out what will suit you the best. So for us, the meeting is about half day long, and each product leaders and team would have 30 minutes to present to share their learnings, the hypothesis, product strategy, potential strategy, tactics, metrics, and how it ties back to our company strategy. And there's some time for debate and discussion, of course. Currently, we do it quarterly, so that's why we call it QPSM, Quarterly Product Strategy Meeting at GOGOX. And so the first lesson, keeping everyone focused. It sounds easy, but in fact it isn't. Here are some of the feedback that we have collected from the NPS. The presentation format and the use of time varies by PM. It's a bit hard to give feedback. So basically hard to give feedback because the presentation format is too inconsistent. It gets very hard for the audience to follow. Second feedback, time management control. It is hard to pay attention after some time if they must be long and separate them into two different sessions. Meeting overrun, even though I said it's a 30-minute presentation for each theme, but it's very often ended up become a 15 minutes presentation because there are a lot of things to share. So time management was poor and it becomes much harder for our audience to pay attention. And lastly, the meeting is quite long, too much information for them to digest. So the audience are lost. That happens because I think what happened was our communication with teams are not sufficient. So a lot of attendee, a lot of people, it was the first time they heard about what things are going in the other team. So basically, to sum up, too long, audience lost focus. So this is a problem that is quite common, but is often overlooked, is the agenda of the meeting. So there are a few things that we did trying to cope with the situation. First of all, we introduced something called strategy grooming before the QPSM, the strategy meeting. So around a week before the strategy meeting, all the PM, all the theme PM would check in with one another to make sure their priority and upcoming strategy wouldn't conflict with each other. This, of course. And also, after confirming these high-level strategy, the PM would discuss with their own team, with the engineers, with the product designer to share that information about what other teams are doing and what they will be doing in the coming 1 to 2 quarters. So basically, it's like a basic backlog grooming session. The grooming session allows PM to have a deeper conversation with all our key stakeholders in advance of the meeting, so they wouldn't be surprised when it is the first time they heard about the strategy. And also, you have to understand that some people may not be comfortable to share their opinions in front of the crowd because the meeting has, let's say, 30 to 50 people in our case. We invite all our country managers, we invite our design and tech partners. So with this arrangement, it helps PM to collect quality feedback, and the signal is a lot easier for the participant to digest. And the second thing we did was we just simply split the meeting into 2 days. It sounds counterintuitive. It may feel like, hey, the meeting is longer, wouldn't be more inefficient, but in fact it didn't. It turned out pretty well. By splitting the meeting in 2, it allows us to have more flexibility. We can have more breaks in between. So within the breaks, people can respond to the Slack, email, and it gives the time for the participant to fresh up a bit and stay focused. And also it lessens the burden for attendee because the meeting is going to be half day. So after the meeting, attendees, the engineers still have time to work on their task, and it helps them to stay focused along in the course of the presentation. And third thing we did was we created the share template. Remember, one of the feedback that we got is that all PM present in a different deck, so it's hard to digest. We simply just create a structure that is consistent for PM, that is a lot easier for, first of all, it's a lot easier for PM to organize a deck, and also it becomes a lot easier for the attendee to digest. And second lesson, to build a shared context. As mentioned earlier, one of our key goals of running the product strategy meeting was to drive alignment and provide the visibility to different team members. Therefore, after running the meeting a few times, we began to invite a teammate from different functional teams to join in, and it covered the cost, right? I guess a lot of us may be familiar with this analogy. One of the problems we identify with by inviting a lot of stakeholders from diverse backgrounds is that they tend to have different context, different understanding of the problem. For example, let's say in market A, the completion rate is poor. Completion rate means a number of jobs that are being fulfilled by our drivers. So for example, our business stakeholders would attribute the problem of poor completion rate to the lack of drivers. We just don't have enough drivers to pick up the jobs to fulfill the jobs. You may think maybe product teams should prioritize driver acquisition over other things. But that may not be true because from our ops partner, they may think the otherwise. Perhaps it wasn't about the number of sign-up, but in fact, it was the process that involved. It takes too much time to activate a driver. It's going to take days for the driver to submit the documents, for us to verify, for them to attend training, to complete the registration. So driver activation should be in focus. But neither of them get the full picture. So as a PM, we are responsible to present the whole context, to share the whole context to all our stakeholders. Because without context, people simply will have different solutions, but just to the simple symptoms of the problem. So this is something that we changed. So what we did is at the start of the meeting, we'll have a head of product to give us the latest update and market outlook, what happened in Hong Kong and what happened in Taiwan, and how this affect our products. So basically everyone would be on the same page. They would have the basic understanding of what market, what happens in which market. And also and also during the team presentation, we will have our PM to share their knowledge and challenge. For example, this feature has been postponed for 2 quarters. Why? Because from our research with that local users, there's some concern that they may have, or there's some technical issue, technical debt that we need to clear before we move on. So it gives a lot of context to our stakeholders so that they can understand the situation holistically. And the third lesson, the use of frameworks. So if you look at what Gibbs shared about Netflix when they run their product strategy meeting, they have this GLEE model that guide the product team to think strategically and in long terms about company growth and evaluate which state the business is currently in. For Netflix, this get big on DVD, lead download, expand worldwide thing is more like a 10 to 20 years thing. And each phase from DVD to downloading to expanding to worldwide would take at least last 3 to 5 years. But for many startups, 3 to 5 years is already a lifetime. And often companies have to pivot to find product market fit. So in our case, we didn't really have this 10-year, 20 years mega master plan. So the challenge for us was the product strategy meeting that we presented. Some audience thought it somehow disconnect with our brand vision of the company. So they would think they often question how your product strategy in the next 2 quarters would contribute to the long-term success of the company, and how would you help our customer in a way that works for business. And after considering the complexity of business, instead of using this grow, lead, expand model to spell out our long-term strategy, we took a different approach. So this is basically what we did. We used a tool called business capability model. It lays out all the capacity of expertise of our organization, and at what core function we need to perform in order to achieve our ultimate goal. This is a simplified version of the model. As you can see on the left, there is a stun, high risk, medium risk, and low risk that basically tell you about the different level of risk or urgency of that capability. And for these missing capability that are at risk, for example, competitive pricing or integration with certain partners. And from these, we derive our product strategy. And for example, for instant 4 hours same day delivery. We're doing a great job, so this part is basically done. And maybe on the driver experience team, we want to work on cash on delivery. We want to make sure the completion rate is high and the delivery are made on time. So these two, they are critical to a company's success, and this would be our strategy for the upcoming quarters. And other thing that we did was to define so-called the 4 strategic pillars for our company at the face. Our product strategy should at least related to one of the pillars. It helps to make sure that all the PM are on the same page, and we're all driving business growth. For example, from the last slide, you see one of the capability we want to achieve was competitive pricing. So to achieve that, one of our strategy was to introduce a surcharge, for example, and update our existing pricing models in market A. And this not only ties back to the capability model, but it also ties to our strategic pillar to achieve solid growth in certain countries. Product management is about managing trade-off and compromise. And these tools help PM to explain to the group why certain trade-offs are made. And you always want your stakeholders to understand the impact and the rationale of the choice you make. So the 4th lesson, establish common language. So here again are some of the feedback that we have collected from the NPS. How do the strategy and tactics tie back to the growth formulas? And what does zero rates mean? Okay. You want to have diverse opinion about your strategy, but when you have stakeholders with diverse background attending the meeting, it's very important for you to establish a common language. Strategy is about clarity. So if they don't know what strategy contribute to, like what this strategy can be tied to the growth model, then they don't know whether this is a strategy that worth pursuing. And secondly, because their teams have different metrics and they see things differently. For example, the metric active driver in Taiwan would means differently from what Hong Kong business team are thinking. And also for this metric that I'm presenting, the zero rate, it means the orders are being canceled after not being picked up by any drivers. This metric would be may not be known by team outside of product or data. So basically, we need to make sure of terminology or the metric that we share are commonly understand. So what we did was we tried to visualize the company's growth lever. We drew out this company growth flywheel, or would even write equation or formulas of our product. So by mapping out these funnels and in an equation, it helps everyone in the room to understand how the strategy could be tied to the company business goal. Remember from the previous slide, the capability we want to gain was to offer competitive pricing and 100% completion rate. So the strategy was to update existing service definition, introduce a surcharge. So you can see how they tie back to our growth model. By introducing surcharge, by invite more drivers to fulfill the jobs, improve the completion rate. By changing the definition of service, not only allow us to have more competitive pricing and service, but also make it clear for the client, for the users, such that the order request would increase. So it helps all the attendees to understand whether and to debate whether this is the right level to pull. And the 5th lesson, the last lesson, translating strategy into actionable step. Strategy is all about action. You need to have a coherent plan, actions to make it work. You need buy-in from the team and to coordinate your team so that the execution can be flawless. But in order for your team to act, there are a few things that they want to know. The result, how did it go last time? The timeline, what are you planning to launch this feature or this strategies? And how does it look? They want to know, they want something more tangible. And this is what we did. So we add a strategy table in the presentation to show the latest result of the last quarter in the last quarter. And also we include that in the one pager that we usually send out to the group before the meetings. So you can see a few quarters ago, this was our strategy, and these are the outcomes and what works and what didn't. So with this, it was showing the positive result, also the negative result. It builds trust. And another thing that we did was to work with the design team, because we know people would find the strategy a bit too abstract. They want something more tangible. And they also want the timeline and also the design of the feature. They want to see how it looks, and then they could add. Since the meeting is about a high-level discussion and debates about product strategy, we didn't want to complicate things. So what we did was we worked with our design partners. We would do a quick demo on some of the potential features of our product strategy. It could be low fidelity. It could be high fidelity mockup. This gives the team things that they give them a sense so that they can carry on the discussion. But make sure you have to state that these mockups are just one of the solution or alternative that we've considered. So with that, I'm gonna end with some key takeaways. Product strategy is about your problem. It's a solution that to a problem that you want to solve. So there's no rule saying all product team would need this. And also it's about people. You need to find the right schedule and invite the right number of people to the meeting to achieve your goal. And also it's about context. Don't hold on to the information. Try to share that with your stakeholders. Emphasize on context, not control. And it's about common goal. Lay out your company goals and objective, so it helps every team to know what you're doing, and it drive alignment across the team. And lastly, most importantly, it's about action. By defining the minimum step to learn, you explain your strategy, show them how it looks. It doesn't matter if it's a lo-fi or just a mock-up, at least it gives them something tangible so that they know how to help. So hopefully by building a result-oriented, a focused team, so all the factors will be aligned, your team will be able to create more impact and value for your users. So with that, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for the participation. I really hope our learnings could be applicable to you. And I'm going to open it up for questions. I have included some additional references material. You could access that by filling out the feedback form in the QR code. And if you have any feedback or question, please feel free to drop a question in the Slido session or reach out to me. This is my email, my Twitter. So yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. While I'm taking the first question, I think the link doesn't work. It can be only viewed from your organization. So maybe you wanna open it up.
Sure.
While for the QR code, at least for me, I got this.
Okay, you mean this QR code, right? The feedback QR code? Yeah,
the feedback QR code leads to a Google Docs, which then leads to permission needed.
Okay, I will definitely change it afterwards.
So the first question that we have was from on Slido. I think it was Roland. Yep. Mm-hmm. Do you want to unmute yourself? Because I think we have time to ask the question, make it more interactive.
Yes, I can unmute myself. I think the use of mockups is brilliant in this context, and I 100% agree with it. But I just wondered if you'd ever experienced any problems downstream. I think you alluded to it because you tried to set the expectations, but maybe if you could talk more about that and if there was any resistance to using high fidelity mockups in front of execs that may not turn out to look like that in the end.
Yep, that's the right question. I think we did sort of have that consideration when we first thought about whether or not to include a high fidelity mockup. So at the very beginning, we were using lo-fi, but then with the lo-fi mockup, what happened is a lot of attendees didn't know what to expect because it's really lo-fi. So then after we moved to the high fidelity or even prototype, we sort of make sure to all the audience that this is just a prototype. This is one of the solutions that we've considered. We haven't fixated on any solution yet. And then also we will provide some references so that it sort of helps the participant to understand. They know what the solution would look like, and at the same time they know is not a concrete solution. It's not something that can fix. So they're still willing to debate and to provide other alternatives.
Thanks very much.
So the next question is from Sarah B. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? So it's Sarah.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for taking my question. So Tom, my question is if you would please share some tips, I wrote teams, but I meant tips, on how to engage other key roles in your organization and in the product team overall to lead and get responsibility on the actions that come out of these strategy workshops. So we obviously run the workshop, it was successful, you get these actionable items, and in the end they expect the product manager to do it all somehow, or they kind of want to escape and not lead because of whatever reasons they have.
Okay, I guess the first part is, first of all, we first started small. At the very beginning when we had the product strategy meeting, the workshop, we only invited a handful of people. We have the tech organization only, and also a few local country team representative to join the meeting. And then what happened was the representative in the local team, they shared the learnings with the country manager, and the country manager loved it. So from that, we got the buy-in to invite more participant. That's the first thing. And the second thing is about expectation management. You have to make sure that all the attendee to the meeting, they have to understand that these are just high-level strategy. The strategy that we state is something that we want to achieve, want to do in the coming 2 quarters, but nothing is set in stone. So there are a lot of discussion and debate, and what we presented in this quarter may not happen next quarter. And we would, but at the end, we will explain to our stakeholders about why this strategy was postponed. Instead, we decided to solve some other issues. So I guess it's really about start small and expectation management.
Thank you from my side, Tom.
Thank you, Sarah.
So if you have more questions, please type it in the chat or the Slido. And while we wait for further questions, I have a question. Okay. You mentioned this template that you were using, like a consistent structure. I would be interested in the content, like what kind of heading, like what is the structure, the consistent structure that you were using? Maybe if you can say a bit about it. Do you require every participant to fill it out beforehand? Maybe if you want to say a few words about that.
Are you referring to the template that we mentioned about? Like, yep.
Yes, you mentioned for the product strategy meeting in preparation for that.
Yeah, for the template, at the first few meetings, we didn't really have the template. We just let our PM to present whatever they think that is helpful to our audience. But what happened is, what led to is the inconsistency. So we sort of, from the NPS that we send out, we will ask our audience which part of the presentation is more beneficial to them and which part could be trimmed down a little bit. So from that, we have a sense to know that which part of the presentation can be eliminated and which part of the presentation we can have more emphasis on. And one of the mistakes that I made was the first few presentation that I had. I only had a 1 to 2 slide on result sharing because I was thinking this presentation is about, it should be forward looking. It should be explaining why I want to do such a certain strategy instead of just talking, hey, I have launched this, it was successful, it was not. But I was wrong because from the NPS, apparently a lot of people wants to know what do you do last quarter? You mentioned about this strategy, but suddenly in this quarter you mentioned about another strategy. Does it mean that it turns out great, or does it mean that it failed miserably? So again, like what I said, it really depends on the people, because the goal is to drive alignment and make sure they have the visibility, right? So when we launched the first few the product strategy workshop or strategy meeting, make sure in the NPS you ask them which part of the presentation that they find the most helpful, so that you know how do you structure that template.
Thank you, Tom. I still have more questions. So, and I see people are still connected. So I'm assuming that you have questions and you're really interested in what Tom is saying. So feel free to ask them. If you don't want me to call you out to ask your question, just wrote no unmuting myself or something. Okay, so just O3. Do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, so he left. So basically it was it was a comment that thank you very much for the insights, and you've managed to fit onto the 4 columns table, something I've previously been preparing as a lengthy document. Thank you. So that's good feedback. Then we have Poo Tai. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Just wondering, because in startup scenes that the market is trending quite fast, and it's a good thing that as a startup you have to respond to the market very fast. How would you avoid that? Because when you set a strategy, it's kind of set, but how to get that it might change various, and how to keep that aligned. Secondly, do we want to change it, or do we want to follow the strategy? Like that was, I think it will be a hard question for me to understand. Like, do I follow the strategy all the way until the next quarter meeting, or should I respond it? Then I have to tell the team that I got off the alignment because I see the elephant foot, what you're saying. But maybe it's a good for the product, or in that sense, that PM, I believe in that. How to avoid a situation like this?
In my opinion, I don't think change of strategy is actually a bad thing, because to be honest, it really depends on the market signal that you are getting, because the strategy that I lay out for this quarter and next quarter may not, like the assumption of the strategy may not hold true, and also there are some signals from different parties that are more urgent. But at the end of the day, even though if you change to a new strategy, it has to tie back to the capability model that we have, the capability model, whether it helps your company to unlock certain expertise so that to achieve your ultimate goal. And also, how does it tie back to the pillars? Because for the capability model and the 4 pillars, these are something that are less subjected to these market change, I suppose. So if you change your strategy, let's say in the middle of the quarter, I think it's fine, as long as the new strategy still tie back to the pillars and the model. And again, you have to make sure that everyone have an expectation that the strategy that you present in the strategy meeting are not set in stone. There are a lot of room to debate. These are just some of the strategies that you come up with based on the assumption that you previously hold. And it's an ongoing process. You have to keep on validating whether these assumptions hold true, whether these strategies are still the optimal strategy to pursue. So a simple answer to that, yes, it's fine to change your strategy to cope with the market, because product market fit wins, right? As long as it still somehow works, how somebody ties back to the pillars that help your company to contribute to your company's long-term goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Can I fire another question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So in this kind of setting, like you say, lots of conflict, especially in different functions, different disciplines. Do you have any best practice in like day-to-day operational tips that can hold each other's hand, each discipline's hand, like forward together, besides these quarterly meetings?
I would say over communication would works best. A lot of time, these sort of conflicts or internal tension is just because there's a lack of visibility of what, like, stakeholders may not know what you're doing and why you're doing. Mm-hmm. By providing that visibility, it builds that mutual empathy, because they know why you think that way. You are, even though you're not doing exactly what like they told you to, but in a sense, you're still helping them. You're still helping the company to achieve that goal. So what I would suggest to do is, in my case, I would have a bi-weekly sync up with my key stakeholders. Key stakeholders, as in they have the right to veto your strategy or to veto the tactics that you have. By having a meeting, I sort of realized after doing it for a year, me and the stakeholders become good friends. With trust, things get a lot easier.
Yeah.
Just try to like buy him a coffee to treat him as a friend.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, I think what I learned is lots of leveraging between parties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally get it. Constant panel, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really like this part on, especially for the trust, because building the trust and because sometimes I think we feel that if we go too much into this planning, then we expect we go one way and then we have to change whatever comes, we have to change. And if we change too quickly and then kind of defocuses us. But I'm absolutely a supporter of this and regular communication and creating this mutual empathy and then also involving the people in it. So I'm actually curious, how did you measure the alignment of the people before and after, how it has changed?
Measuring alignment, I don't think there's a metric, like there's a line whether you're aligned, you're not aligned, how to measure it. But what I would suggest everyone to do is, because there's no definite answer to this question, what I suggest everyone to do is to list out the KPI or the OKRs of different teams. By seeing all the OKR or KPI, you sort of have a sense that whether the teams are working together, working in a close, like they're working to the same direction. Like simply by looking at the OKR or KPI, do you think you can work backward and deduce what the company main goal is? And also, can you group these KPI or OKR or things that they've done? Can you group them and tie it back to the strategic pillar? If the answer is yes, then you have a very aligned team, because apparently all the things that they've done, all the KPI actually are deduced from this this main goal, this company goals, this pillar, and then becomes a strategy. But if not, which means there are a lot of room for you to work on. And another thing I would do is talk often with the team, ask them what are the current challenges is. If a lot of time, if it's come from an internal tension or cross-team dependency, let's say you talk to engineers, he's saying, oh, he's pretty stressed because other team is asking him to do one thing while you're asking him to do another, then apparently the priority has not been sorted out. In other words, the company is not well aligned. But of course, there's always a lot of room for improvement. I don't think any company in the world has like perfect alignment in terms of strategy and execution. So that's why it's an ongoing process. As long as you keep communicating with the team, keep make sure that the OKR or KPI are not conflicting. I think that would be a big plus already.
Thank you, Tom. Sam was asking if it's possible to take a look at one of your slides that you showed alignment, visibility, and then I guess in order to find out what stands for the question mark. Sam, if you want to unmute yourself. Maybe there's a question tied to this slide.
Yeah, I just want to see one of the slides he showed us just now. Drive alignment and ensure everyone has a visibility of roadmap. And then I forgot the slide already, but I'm sure Tom's no.
Let me think. Should be somewhere here. This part?
Yes, yes. This. Thank you. I saw it. I really like the slides. The color is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's a key as a product manager. We need to align everyone.
Yes.
With the expectation, right, from different stakeholders and ensure everyone has the same visibility. And thank you, Tom.
Yeah, you're welcome. I guess one of the challenges that we face as a PM is that we can't really control or sort of dictate what the priority of an other functional team. But with the product strategy meeting with with the presentation, showing how strategy ties back to the pillars, it becomes more convincing for them to somehow consider your strategy, or have strategies that is complementing each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. I'm just checking if on Slido we have further questions. We don't have on Slido further questions, and nowhere in the chat here. So with this, basically, I just wanted to thank you for your presentation and your insights, and then also everyone who has joined us today. We have recorded a session, so we're going to send the recording out afterwards. And next week we already have the next speaker lined up. I'm just going to show you just quickly. I take over the screen. So it's going to be Jaisid from OLX, and we're going to talk about the art of building product strategy, and then from a different angle. So we are very much looking forward to see you again next week. And with this, I'm closing the session, and I wish you a great day for everyone. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.